All right, let's talk about a stylistic problem that's called the broad reference which. Okay, let me get back to my home screen here. Okay. So the broad reference which, what does that deal with? Well, which is a relative pronoun, and if you tack a relative clause to the end of a sentence that begins with which, it's generally considered poor writing. You should generally revise it, and I'll explain why in a minute. So consider this sentence here. The speaker feels both joy and pain, which seems paradoxical. The which is a reference to something. It's lazy to tack on a which clause at the end of a sentence. We don't know if which refers to the pain. The pain is paradoxical, if it's the both. I mean, we can guess, but the reader has to guess a little bit, and then you're wasting the reader's time. That's how it's written here. It feels both pain, a seemingly paradoxical mix of emotions. So instead of which, you replace it with what is called a sentence appositive. That is a phrase that modifies a sentence that begins with some real word, a seemingly paradoxical mix of emotions. Okay? Let's look at some other examples. Here's one from legal writing. In Boone versus Mullendore, Dr. Mullendore failed to remove Mrs. Boone's fallopian tube, which resulted in the birth of the baby. Now we can kind of guess what that means, but the which refers to that the tube resulted in the birth of the baby, that it was his failure, that it was the removal. We have to guess. So a better way to rewrite it would be in Boone versus Mullendore, Dr. Mullendore's failure to remove Mrs. Boone's fallopian tube resulted in the birth of the baby. Okay, so it's very clear what the which refers to. It's been eradicated from the sentence, and it's the failure that resulted in the birth of the baby. Okay, and that's from Enquist and Oates' Just Writing. So let's take a look at a couple other sentences. So take a look at this one. The defendant lashed out at the judge and tried to flee the courtroom. Instead of which surprised everyone at the trial, we don't know if it's that he lashed out at the judge or tried to flee the courtroom. You could say the defendant lashed out at the judge and tried to flee the courtroom, actions that surprised everyone at the trial. Okay. How about B? The building is abandoned and sits in a field overgrown with weeds, which is why it is used by drug dealers and other criminals. You could revise this one to say drug dealers and other criminals use the abandoned building because it sits in a field overgrown with weeds, or the building is abandoned and sits in a field overgrown with weeds, making it attractive to drug dealers and other criminals, something like that. Okay? How about this one? The two sides will not reach an agreement on health care or the budget, which is the main reason for voter cynicism. Again, get rid of that which there. How about the two sides' failure to reach an agreement on health care or the budget will cause more cynicism among the voters? Something like that. Thanks. Thanks for listening about the broad reference which.